Hey, this is Ciderhelm. In this video I'm going to cover the passive and active skills of the Demon Hunter. So I just reached level 10 on the Demon Hunter, and now all of the passive skills have opened up because I've earned my first slot for passives. I'll get another one at level 20, another one at level 30, but those are not going to be available during the beta. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I'll cover the passives first, and then I'll cover the actives. I will show off some of the abilities in action so you guys can see them, especially the ones that I haven't shown in the original playthrough. So let's go ahead and jump in. Brooding. As long as you have not taken damage in the last 5 seconds, you gain 2% of your maximum health per second. Okay, so pretty basic, just gain health if you're not getting hit. Thrill of the Hunt. Every 10 seconds, your next normal attack will immobilize your target for 3 seconds. Vengeance. Gain 10 hatred and 1 discipline whenever you are healed by a health globe. Health globes are common, they drop all the time, you know, they're common. Now, gaining 10 hatred and 1 discipline, what does that mean? If you followed the other video, you'll see that we have 2 bars at the bottom right. If you look next to the bottom right side of the hotbar, we actually have 2 resource bars divided in half. One's blue, one's red. The left side is hatred. It's a fast a fast regenerating resource used to fuel the Demon Hunter's offensive abilities. And then discipline, a resource that regenerates slowly over time, used for the Demon Hunter's tactical abilities. So the discipline is much lower. There's only 30 of this available, whereas hatred there's 100. So what we're getting here is gain 10 hatred and 1 discipline whenever you're healed by a health globe. A little spotty because you can't always guarantee they're going to be health globes, but there may be things that affect that down the road. I don't know. Steady aim. As long as there are no enemies within 10 yards, all damage is increased by 10%. Now, I could be wrong. I haven't exactly nailed down exactly how far the yards are in this game, but 10 yards is pretty short. You can actually... yeah, 10 yards is pretty short. You should be out of... if you're playing well, and particularly if you have teammates, it shouldn't be difficult to stay 10 yards away from enemies. Cull the Weak. Damage against slowed enemies is increased by 20%. You have a number of options to slow your enemies, particularly as you get more active skill slots available, and so you're not sacrificing something else to get the slows. So damage against slowed enemies increased by 20%. This is a, you know, you've got options to slow your enemies, so that's going to be a positive if you're doing that. Fundamentals. Increase the damage of your basic attacks by 100%. Your basic attacks restore 15 hatred. So rather than using an ability like, and this is just a guess, but rather than using an ability like Hungering Arrow, which I'm currently using, there you go, which costs me 15 hatred, instead I could do something like use an auto attack and instead gain that. So actually an auto attack, there you go. I mean, it's not much different really. But anyway, you would gain it by using auto attacks in between. Now one thing is, I don't know how the damage is going to play out. This might be a case where the damage on your auto attacks might become stronger than, say, the damage on the first hit of a Hungering Arrow. I don't know exactly the math behind that, whether 100% is equivalent to 200% weapon damage like this tooltip, so your auto attacks would become stronger than, say, Hungering Arrow. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. Somebody else can probably tell you. What I can say is that if I am spamming this ability, as you can see, now you see how I'm getting 2 normal shots out there before I can use this ability again. Now sometimes it's just 1 shot, but that's just how it is. Now this is, if I had this ability, just to guess, for sure I would never waste 2 auto shots. I would always, off the first auto shot, get enough energy, enough hatred to use the next Hungering Arrow. Again, not that big of a deal, but it might matter with something like Bolus Shot, which is going to cost you more of your hatred. And I'll cover that in just when we get to the active skills here. Okay, let's fundamentals is what we just covered. Okay, Hot Pursuit. Whenever you are at full hatred, which is 100%, the red thing, whenever you're at full hatred, movement speed is increased by 10%. Just up to you, that's movement speed, not much to it. Archery. Gain bonuses based upon weapon held. Bow is 10% increased damage. Bonus with crossbows is 100% critical damage. Bonus with hand crossbows is 5% chance to critical hit. Okay, so during the original playthrough, I believe I played through with a normal crossbow. I could be wrong on that. I'll jump into that a little, I think, during the active abilities, just so I can show you the hatred differences as far as spending it. But anyway, archery is just based on the type of weapon, you get different bonuses. Perfectionist. Reduce the discipline cost of all skills by 20%. Discipline is used to fuel many of your tactical and defensive skills. Okay, so quickly, just to demonstrate this, Vault is a standard ability. Let's go ahead and show it here. It's pretty cool, actually. You can chain it together. And let's see. Once I have enough, I'll go ahead and do a Vault and then keep moving, because that's another thing. It doesn't interrupt movement. For some reason, I remember it did, but I could be totally wrong on that. When I was playing through, that was the second class I played, whatever. So anyway, the Vault is 10 discipline. So if we have 30 discipline here, it means I can use it 3 times and then I'm just totally out. Now, if I'm doing my math correctly, I would only spend 24 discipline to use it 3 times if I had that particular passive skill. Now, if I only spend, because it's 8 per, because 20% off 10 is, well, it's 2, and then that makes the remaining cost 8. So let's go ahead and say that it costs 26, or 24 rather, and I may have actually regenerated those 4 by the time I'm done doing 3. So that might be the kind of thing where I could actually break out, and during the course of using 3, I've generated enough discipline that I can use a 4th immediately after. That's a guess. I really don't know how it's going to play out, and I can't test it, and so whatever. Custom engineering. The duration of your Caltrops, marked for death, spike trap, and sentry abilities are increased by 100%. Yeah, I don't know. This could be very useful, but really from what I've seen with Caltrops and marked for death, duration isn't an issue. But again, I could be totally wrong on that. So, and I haven't seen Spike Trap and I haven't seen Sentry. So take it for what it is. I don't know how that'll play out. A lot of these deeper things I'm just not going to know because we can't test them. We can't see if they're good or not. Grenadier reduces the hatred cost of your grenades and cluster arrow abilities by 15. Upon death, you drop a giant grenade that explodes for 91 to 137 damage. Yeah, that's what it is. Sharpshooter. Gain a 3% chance to critical hit every second. This bonus is reset 1 second after you successfully critical hit. Okay, so I'm guessing this, this reminds me a little bit of Ashe in League of Legends. 3% chance to critical hit every second, and that's accumulating. So you have 3%, 6%, 9% after 3 seconds. That keeps accumulating, so you're basically, after a little period of time, almost guaranteed to crit. That's a guess. I don't know exactly if that's how it's going to play, but there it is. Ballistics. Damage from rockets increased by 100%. Rockets are fired from certain socketed skill effects. Okay, socketed skill effects. I'm not even going to get in there because I don't know. So let's go ahead and get into the active skills. Now again, before we touch off the passives here, the passives are, you get 3 of them, first at 10, second at 20, third at 30, and you can pick between any of these, mix and match, and you can swap them out. So for instance, I just switched between Thrill the Hunt and Brooding. You can do that anytime you want, at least as of the current build. Okay, so let's start getting into the abilities here. Now the very first one that we start with is Hungering Arrow. Fire a magically imbued arrow that seeks out targets for 140% weapon damage and has a 50% chance to pierce through targets. So you saw it all throughout the playthrough. It's a pretty effective ability. You can miss and it will still hit because it is actually seeking out, like it'll ricochet conveniently. At least that's been my experience with it. So it's just a common shot, a lot of damage, has a chance to pierce through targets, does it fairly frequently just because you are fairly frequently using it. Now let's see if I happen to have a different type of bow in my inventory. One hand, one hand, one hand. I don't, and that actually is not going to help me demonstrate here. Now I believe my experience was playing with the original one-player, the original playthrough that I did, that I used a two-handed crossbow. I could be mistaken. I don't know if I was just not paying enough attention to my weapons at all, but I believe I was using the two-handed crossbow. So in using that, I also believe that I didn't have problems with this because I was firing roughly half as fast. But when I'm using my... let's go ahead and show it. I'm actually using 2. I'll stop shooting here. I'm actually using 2. I'm using a rare hand crossbow and a magic hand crossbow. And the hand crossbow being the name of the item, or the item type. Well, anyway, I'm using 2 because you can dual wield these. Pretty cool. Someone pointed that out to me in the comments. It's pretty cool. but you run out of hatred super quick with this, and the damage isn't that outstanding with it. And it is alternating. It's actually shooting with this one, which this one, I can see the difference like night and day. So I'm going from the 18.5. When I land a shot with the 18.5, I see a big chunk of life come out. When I land the shot with the 7.2, I don't. And right now, okay, I mean, those both have plus experience because I was using it to level. In fact, most of my gear does. But anyway, that's how it is. That's going to be true for most of these skills. Let's go ahead and jump back into the other skills. Now, Entangling Shot, let's go ahead and switch, let's switch Hungering Arrow out with Entangling Shot. And what Entangling Shot does is it basically latches onto, it hits one target, but then it can also latch onto a second target, and it's going to slow both of those targets by 50%. I haven't had an excuse to use it yet in the playthrough. It's a little less damage, so I've been wanting to use the Hungering Arrow instead, because the Hungering Arrow, not only is it going to hit its target, it's got a good chance to hit another target as well. And I believe it can pierce multiple targets in a row. I won't say for 100% sure, because usually I won't unless I actually test it, and I can't really test it here because I've cleared most of this dungeon. Okay, so Entangling Shot is basically 2 targets can get slowed, 1 target takes damage. Okay, so the next one, Evasive Fire. This one was obnoxious. 5 Hatred to shoot and an additional 4 Discipline if you backflip. It's basically shoot for 135% of weapon damage. If an enemy is at close range, you will also backflip away 15 yards. Let's go ahead and switch this one out with Evasive Fire. No, actually, in hindsight, you will not have energy issues with this. But what I found obnoxious with this is when I wasn't doing a lot of damage. That's actually kind of cool. When I wasn't dealing a lot of damage with it and stuff would get near me, I would backflip, and that was annoying because I don't like being forced to move, as, you know, I don't like my character being forcefully moved, especially when it's like an ability. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't very enjoyable to me, but it's probably going to be very, very useful, especially as you get used to it. So let's go ahead and... So anyway, that's not going to pierce. Again, the Hungering Arrow is going to be a little bit better. Fan of Knives, throw knives in a spiral, or knives out in a spiral around you, doing 4 to 5 physical damage to all enemies within 10 yards. Your knives will also slow the enemies by 35% for 4 seconds. Pretty basic ability. Let's go ahead and... There you go. Not that it... Well, I don't like that animation, I will be honest. It looks like I've got an oil slick behind each of these... like bullets with oil slicks behind them. I don't know. Take it for what it is. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. So that's a pretty basic concept. I mean, it's in a lot of games, rogues, whatever. Bola Shot. Shoot out an explosive bola that wraps itself around its target. After 1 second, the bola explodes, dealing 120% weapon damage as fire to the target, and an additional 90% weapon damage as fire damage to all other targets within 7 yards. I found that I enjoyed this particular shot. However, like you see, it's like the 15 Hatred one, except you run out a whole lot faster. So let's see. 3 shots before I can fire again, so I'm alternating every 3rd shot. That's why I didn't use it much, but it does have a use, and I did use it, and in large groups of enemies, I was able to get quite a bit of damage out by using it. Okay, grenades. Let's go ahead and switch over here. Throw out 3 grenades that explode for 12 to 19 fire damage. Yeah, I didn't make much use of it just because I didn't... Well, I didn't like the mechanic. I was like throwing them downstairs. Let's see if I can throw them down here. And the delay on them, it's kind of useful, but it wasn't that useful, and I don't know. I wasn't hitting mobs that easily. Whereas with any other shot that the Demon Hunter does, it's super easy. So, take it for what it is. Well, I guess... I probably should have made more use of it. It actually probably is pretty good, especially against groups of enemies. And especially after I started playing like the Witch Doctor and the Wizard, where I was really starting to enjoy the AoE. High hatred cost, very high hatred cost. What is this? 30 hatred. Okay, that's another reason that I might not use it. Along with a limited active skill, a limited number of active skills that I had available during my playthrough. Okay, Chakram. This was interesting. I did make use of it in a couple places. It was a little silly, though. Here you go. So I'm a ninja that shoots that. Yeah. It is kind... I don't know. It might be something you think is really cool. I think it looks kind of dumb, and I think it's pretty hard to land. There are going to be some pro players who manage to do it, like, amazingly, and, like... I don't know. It's not going to be me. Probably because I'm not going to be playing this too much. But there you go. That's Chakram. Decent amount of damage, ton of hatred, not as much as grenades, but ton of hatred. There it is. Impale. So these are the abilities I haven't gotten to use yet. Everything grayed out, obviously. And some of them, as soon as you get past level 13, I believe, that's where the cutoff is. Everything past level 13 is just not available in the beta at all. So here we go. Impale. Cost 20 hatred. Fire a massive shot to impale a target for 220% weapon damage. Now, I'm not sure if there's anything different about the word impale, like maybe there's some CC attached to it. It doesn't say it, so I'm going to assume there's not. But 20 hatred shot, 220% weapon damage. That's pretty substantial. Spike trap. Lay a trap that arms after 0.8 seconds and triggers when an enemy approaches. The trap does 16 to 20 physical damage to all enemies within 8 yards. You can have a maximum of 3 spike traps active at one time. Okay, so my thoughts on it, based on the game that I've seen so far, traps don't have a purpose. Neither do Caltrops, which I'll get into. They don't have a purpose yet, because nothing is getting close to me in such a way that I actually want to use it. I mean, I might be able to make some use of it on Skeleton King. I don't know. But anyway, I'm sure that later on down the game, these kinds of things are going to be very helpful, especially on more complex boss fights. Elemental Arrow, 25 hatred. Shoot an elemental arrow or charged arrow that deals 100% weapon damage as fire damage to all targets it passes through. So, taking for what it is, it's passing through targets. It says that in the description, but I'm not sure the mechanics of it, whether it'll pierce through all targets. But that could be a pretty powerful... I don't know. Multi-shot. Fire a massive volley of arrows, dealing 110% weapon damage to all enemies in the area. So, multi-shot is two little concepts. I'm not sure which one it's going to be. Volley versus multi-shot. Multi-shot being like the ability where you shoot several arrows in front of you. Say like... well, anyway. Versus a volley, which is... So, here's what I'm getting at. I'm not even going to try to belabor this terrible, distorted, contorted description I'm saying. Is it going to be a cone in front of you, or is it going to be an area effect? Is it going to be area effect like, say, I think Hunters in World of Warcraft had an AoE. They would target a location and arrows would rain down, whatever. Or is it going to be a cone in front of you where it's going to hit targets in front of you? And I'm not sure from that. From that description, we'll see. Cluster Arrow, 35 hatred. Fire a cluster grenade that explodes for 120% weapon damage into a series of additional mini-bombs that explode for 40% weapon damage each. Could be cool. It could be really cool in AoE packs, large groups of mobs. I don't know, but the description makes it sound like there are some interesting mechanics there. I mean, mini-bombs, cool, whatever. Rapid Fire, 20 hatred per second. Rapidly fire at 6 times your normal attack speed, dealing 30% weapon damage with every shot. Okay. 20 hatred per second. Okay, that's what I'm missing there. So, for 20 hatred per second, you can rapidly fire at 6 times your normal attack speed. The math just quickly in my head, that seems like it'd be good. Somebody's going to get real deep into those numbers, and it's probably not going to be me. Strafe, 20 hatred per second. Shoot 3 times per second at random nearby enemies while moving at 55% of normal movement speed. Every shot deals 60% of weapon damage. Okay, so this... It sounds like you just move slower and you are randomly shooting, but you're actually hitting enemies as you move. Every shot deals 60% of weapon damage, so not that much, but you could probably clear through a large area with stuff that's not too difficult. Look, I don't know. This could be amazing. I just can't tell you. It just seems like you would be moving slowly, but like an AC 130, blowing everything up as you go. Let's see. Finally, Rain of Arrows, 1 minute cooldown. Fire a massive volley of arrows around you. Arrows fall from the sky for 5 seconds, dealing an average of 105% weapon damage per second. From the sky. So maybe the other one is a volley. The multi-shot is just a straight shot in front of you. Maybe a cone or something. Arrows fall from the sky. I hated that animation, but it could be pretty cool as far as the damage dealt. Especially... It's like these ceilings don't mean anything in here. When my barbarian was like jumping through the ceiling to get somewhere. Whatever. I'm just being tangential here. It could be pretty good damage. There's nothing interesting about that. 1 minute cooldown. That's it. Caltrops. Let's get back into here. So the first section I did was the offense section. The second section here is going to be the discipline section. And this is going to be stuff that actually uses our discipline bar. So let's see. I've already showed... Well, let's start with Caltrops. Caltrops here. These are little traps that I can lay all around. Lay a trap of Caltrops on the ground that activates when an enemy approaches. Once sprung, the Caltrops slow the movement of enemies within 12 yards by 50%. This trap lasts 12 seconds. It lasts quite a while. If you're going to use it, you should be able to lay it, and it will still affect whatever you need it to affect. That's why I was kind of questioning, like, how valuable really is the 100% additional time passive. But situational, it may be very, very valuable. I don't know. Well, anyway, on Caltrop, this doesn't do any damage, so I had no use for it in the playthrough. That's just how it is. Again, there wasn't really much need for defensive play in the playthrough. So there you go. Doesn't do any much damage. It does do work as advertised. It does slow enemies approaching you. So it would be effective in that regard when you need to use it. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the... Where is this? Vault is the next ability. I already showed you this. This is amazing.
I am too low on discipline.
No, I can't do it a third time here because I just used too much. Well, anyway, it doesn't work too well on stairs, if you see. Well, that didn't work so bad on stairs, but my experience hasn't been so good on stairs. But anyway, it's very, very good for quick repositioning on, say, fights like the Skeleton King, where he has a charge animation. If you time it right, you can always charge away when he is landing in. It's pretty straightforward. It's not as good, in my opinion, as the Furious Leap, or whatever the barbarian skill is named. I don't remember exactly what it's called. But it's not as good as that leap because that, well, the cooldown shorter, you can chain it together. It's just different. It's not that it's better or worse. It's just different. But you can't go over the barriers and obstacles that, say, the barbarian can. Even in places where it looks like maybe you should be able to, you can't. So the barbarian has an edge in where he can get to, the versatility of it, whereas our demon huntress here has an edge on getting wherever you want to go really fast. So that is what it is. Let's go ahead and look at the next abilities here. Marked for Death, I made some use of this, just applied it to my 2 button, and quickly, any mob I see I can press 2 on very quickly. It'll have... Wow. Well, here. Perfect. I didn't even realize that was there. So I've just put that on. There it is, and let's go ahead and use our grenades. Yeah! Oh, I wonder if there's another one. Nope. Well, anyway, so Marked for Death, I can apply it. It will cause me to marks an enemy. The marked enemy will take 20% additional damage for the next 30 seconds. Smoke Screen. 15 Discipline. Vanish behind a wall of smoke, becoming momentarily invisible for 2 seconds. I do not know how this works. Can I actually move while this is active? I assume yes, but I don't know. It costs 15 Discipline, so I can only use that twice quickly before I'm totally out of Discipline. Okay. Companion. Cost 10 Discipline. Summon a Raven Companion. Your Raven Companion will periodically peck at enemies for 7 to 9 damage. I don't know how long it lasts, whether it's a permanent companion or whether, you know, it'll go away after a short time. It doesn't say anything about that, so I'm hoping that it's going to be permanent. The 10 Discipline cost isn't very much, so let's see. Shadow Power. 20 Discipline. Draw in the power of the shadows, increasing attack speed by 50% for 10 seconds. That's a high Discipline cost, but again, the Discipline stuff is actually pretty defensive. So if you're not too worried about the defensive parts and you can get the Marked for Death up, Shadow Power is probably going to be a good thing to use, especially in pretty serious fights where you've got a group, your group is taking care of the incoming damage. I don't see too much that's going to be too much more important, but let's see. Invis, Vault, Caltrops, Marked for Death. So you want Marked for Death up, obviously. Companion... You know, you'll probably, hopefully, be able to summon that beforehand. So Shadow Power looks like, hey, it's a great offensive skill. 10 seconds of hugely increased attack speed. Okay, Sentry. 10 discipline. Drop a turret on the ground, because this is normal. Our Demon Huntress is actually an engineer. Drop a turret on the ground. The turret begins firing at nearby enemies for 40% of weapon damage. Lasts 10 seconds. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw this out here. Let's say Shadow Power 50% or 20 discipline, Sentry 10 discipline. So I could use both of those. 6 discipline on Mark for Death. Just some quick math here. So 4 off here, so 16. So you could actually use all 3 of these, and I'm not sure if there'd ever be a situation, but if you had the 20% reduced discipline cost, you could use Marked for Death, and then immediately use Shadow Power, or use Sentry, and then immediately use Shadow Power. And you could use all of them without any regen occurring at all. Hopefully I'm getting the math right on that. Just a guess. I don't know if this will be useful to anybody or not. Okay, finally, Utility. Cooldown, 120 seconds. Instantly restore all discipline. That's pretty useful, but I mean, it is what it is. You've seen the abilities that use discipline. They are pretty cool, particularly something like Vault, Shadow Power, Sentry. Sentry's probably pretty cool. Marked for Death. Well, Marked for Death is 30 seconds. Okay, you would never use Preparation to use Marked for Death. Just gonna say that here, hopefully. But anyway, between these, you do get some pretty cool abilities. Preparation's gonna help out. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so now we've covered everything. As far as active skills, if you haven't paid attention to this during the playthroughs, the thing to know about them is that you only have a certain number of slots available. You can't do something like apply a buff to yourself and then switch out the buff spell. Yeah, you can't, or let's see, Marked for Death. Let's see if I can find an enemy very quickly here, and I don't think I can, but let's see if I can. Just well, maybe these. Okay, let's see if I can get this mark out. And now, instead of having Marked for Death, let's switch this over here. What's going to happen? Nothing. So there's a second video where I've actually been kind of surprised about this. The Marked for Death is staying up, and I've switched the ability out. Okay, well, at the very least, I showed you that you can actually pick Marked for Death and then switch out to a different ability. But the whole point that I was getting to here is with active skills, you can only have a certain number in your toolkit at a given time. So if you're in the midst of combat, you don't want to be switching out skills. You want to go in with the skills that you want to have for that fight. Or just generally for dungeon running, a general set of skills. So you won't always have what you want. But over time, you get more slots to have more of these skills available to you on hand, on your hotbar, ready to use. And as you have more of those available to you, yeah, it just makes things, you can use more of these cool things. Like Caltrops, for instance, I would not even consider using it if I only had 2 or 3 slots available. But once I have all slots available, I might have a good use for Caltrops. I might say I'm making use of this enough to justify it. So anyway, all about the toolkit, all about the number of skills you have available at a given time. We got this one, I think, at level 9, the Chakram, the one that's filled with Chakram right now. But then obviously 12, 18, and 24. Okay, well, thanks for watching the Demon Hunter, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll be covering the Monk and the Wizard next. Thank you.